Good morning, respected teaching fraternity. Let me welcome you all on behalf of Dr.Sumit University and as Director of Department of Humanities, Dr. Sumit Patel. As we know, recent pandemic has changed the way this world operates. Man-machine methods, markets, everything. And teachers are at the forefront of any change. And let me tell you that these are going to be the biggest change after World War II, and the introduction of computers in our life probably get greater. So speaking of changes and how to go about it, and how to carry it forward to the upcoming generations as stalwarts of change and education, we teachers have the largest responsibilities on our shoulder. जैसे चाणक्य ने कहा था कि जो जनता पे आधिपत्य रखता है वो राजा है, और जो समय पे आधिपत्य रखता है वो शिक्षक है। तो वही हम लोग हैं, और शिक्षण समुदाय जो आज जुड़ा हुआ है हमारे साथ, हमारी जो एक निष्ठा है, हमारा कर्तव्य है, हमारा दायित्व है कि इस चेंज को किस तरह से समाज की ओर ले जाइए और समाज को एक नई दिशा दिखाए। तो इसी वजह से वी हैव कम अप विद दिस EFDP, which is again incidentally and very relevantly on online teaching, because AICT tells us even after Corona, you have to take 25% or so of the course online. So it's a new window of learning. And to train or rather skill our teachers into this particular new technology or the new forefront of operating system, we at Dr.Sumit University have come up with this EFTP on online teaching. Speaking of changing times, as I said with the reference of Chanakya, skilling for online education is the way to go forward. And it makes me really happy to tell and inform you, learned gathering over here, that we have more than 4,200 teaching fraternity joining us and making us a real masterclass of change agents. And to take us forward in this masterclass, we have none other than Dr. Sumit Choudhary. Ladies and gentlemen, before I introduce him formally, of course, it's my privilege to introduce him formally also to you. But let me just say that I really believe that professionalism should be the essence of academic fraternity. And going by that, there is one person in front of you who chipped in at the very last moment because of some changes. The earlier speaker could not come. So we had to change him, and he's the learned man that he's being. He readily agreed to speak to you. So thank you. I would be starting on with a big thank you, Dr. Choudhary. And again, before we go further, I would like to instruct some of the things that you can follow us on www.humanities@utu.ac.in and our Facebook page. If you miss out on some portions, and also on top of Corona, we are right now, since we are based in southern Gujarat, we are literally in middle of a hurricane, which might hamper our internet connections now and again. So if you miss out on anything from our end or your end, you can really log on to www.humanities@utu.ac.in or visit our Facebook page also. Again, let me take forward, let me introduce Dr. Sumit Choudhary to you, Dean of Forensic Sciences and Dean of Executive Development Board, Raksha Shakti University. Dr. Sumit Kumar Choudhary is an established academician, researcher, author, editor, consultant, and influential thought leader in forensic science discipline. He is a gold medalist in forensic science from National Institute of Criminology and Forensic Science, Ministry of Home Affairs, New Delhi, and holds a PhD degree in forensic science and behavioral sciences, and boasts of a highly decorated academic profile. His professional experience of a decade involves his association with the first forensic science university in this world in capacity of a UGC Research Fellow, which was followed by his appointment as the first faculty member in the first Police University of India, Raksha Shakti University. He has been instrumental in growth story of Raksha Shakti University by serving in various capacities such as academic head of university, university vigilance officer, member of board of governors, academic council, finance committee, program coordinators to name a few. He went to become one of the youngest officiating registrar of the university at the age of 29 years and held the office for more than 3 years. Dr. Sumit has led the expansion of academic executive development programs at Raksha Shakti University, particularly in the field of forensics, and has been accredited with his prominent role in developing the Department of Forensic Sciences at Raksha Shakti University as HOD, which has today developed into a School of Forensic Science and Risk Management. He is presently serving as the founder and incumbent dean of the school. He is also serving as dean of Training Executive Development Center, Raksha Shakti University. So it's been my great privilege and honor to welcome you, sir, on board. So let's commence our today's topic of blended learning through our EFDP first day, our academic quest for finding new normal of teaching. Over to you, Dr. Sumit.
Thank you, Dr. Rosie. Good morning, everyone. I welcome all the participants from across the world belonging to my fraternity of teachers. And we now understand how important this faculty development programs have been, and also that it has been made mandatory by our regulating bodies. So I welcome you all. At the outset, I would also like to thank the Ukata Sadia University, the Honorable Vice Chancellor, and our very adorable Dean, Dr. Rosie Patel, Center of Humanities, who have given me this opportunity and also a big responsibility to fill in the big shoes of Dr. Ami Upadhyay, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Baba Saheb Ambedkar University, who was supposed to speak to all of you today morning in my place. Dr. Rosie has given a very good introduction of mine, and I'm very thankful to her. For those of you who do not know about Raksha Shakti University, this is the first police university of our country, and it is soon going to become the National Police University. The bill has been introduced in Parliament, and it is going to become a central police university and an institute of national importance. Friends, coming to our today's session, I'm sure you all would have appreciated by now that the world has changed. The world has changed a lot in the last 6 months. The time we witnessed before Corona pandemic and the time that is today where we meet, a lot of things have changed. We have witnessed a fundamental change in approach of all of us. We have gone in the lockdown, and now we have seen how to unlock in phases ourselves. The entire gamut of functioning, the human activities have seen tremendous change. So is the case with the education system as well. If you see that a couple of years ago, there were certain universities who were advertising for certain positions, certain vacancies, and they used to mention that people are eligible only who have done the programs in a regular full-time classroom mode. But see how the world, because of an invisible virus, has changed. The whole world today has resorted to the online mediums of education, which were once considered bottom in the strata of a class divide of education system. People look down to those who had only online educations and who did not complete a full-time class of educations once upon a time. So the world is changing. That's why I'm saying there's a genetical mutation that this corona has done into our education system. And today our education is genetically very different just in this matter of 6 months. There is a paradigm shift that we all have approached our today's education system and that we used to approach our earlier education system. You can say that it is a cultural fast forwarding. Nobody had imagined that the world would so soon accept and adopt the online medium so widely, as nobody could have thought that it would happen in a matter of 6 months. People predicted that online education may be the future, but they thought that it would take at least 5 or 7 years down the line to seep into the system, such education practices to come into our system. So it is a cultural fast forwarding that has happened. And today, not only the students, see, as the teachers, all of us are meeting here on an online platform to develop our skills, and especially the topic is so relevant. The Center of Humanities needs a lot of appreciation for choosing this topic of skilling in online educational tools. I'm sure all the participants would benefit immensely from this topic. And as a teacher, remember, this is going to be very important for all of us. There is still a cadre of teachers, there is still a generation of teachers who are reluctant to accepting and adopting this change. But now we have no other options rather than to amalgamate this change with our previous practices. We can't be reluctant, we can't be hesitant. Now we have to be open to accepting this practice as a new normal. As Dr. Rosie also mentioned, that the regulatory bodies, the World Health Organization, they're all saying that this situation is going to continue for a long, long time, and that we may have to learn to live with this new situation. So, if such situation persists, it makes it very evident that we will have to use this new technological resource into our day-to-day learning and teaching activities. If you would have noticed very recently, in all the social media platforms and all the email inboxes are flooded with the messages of webinars and e-conferences and virtual trainings and everything. So that means that there is a lot of activities which is still happening. That means the teaching learning cannot stop, only the methods can change. And so I call upon all of you to accept this change and make yourself an expert of this change. The earlier you learn this technologies, the earlier you accept these changes, the earlier you um, convince yourself, the earlier you convince your other stakeholders, your organization, your students, that see, this is going to be the future, and you cannot say no to the incoming of this new trend. What it change I have observed in certain faculties, some of my colleagues, even they are now ready to accept this technology. This is what the corona has done. The people who said that IT tools are just kind of interruptions and they cannot replace a classroom teacher, and they thought that a classroom teacher can have different kind of advantages, and they can connect with the students in a way that this online teaching modules do not allow us to. So even they have now accepted, and they are also now ready with the new armor of this online teaching tools. And that's why I see the change very much accepted now. The philosophy of teaching is changing from a sage on the stage to guide on the side. That has become the new punchline. We used to see the traditional classrooms where the teachers used to come mostly well dressed and prepared for a topic of maybe 60 minutes or 90 minutes to deliver to the group of students. All the students used to listen to him, and he could finish a topic as pre-planned. The pace became self-controlled, the audience he managed, and so everybody was given the same prepare in a traditional teaching where you had a desk bench arrangement in a building, and all of the students needed compulsorily to travel and reach there on time and to participate in the deliberations. Now the introduction of online education also happened. The e-learning system came into the picture. In research paper of one of the data, it was mentioned that in the year 2000, there were almost 45,000 learners who were using online platforms for learning. This number swelled up to more than 3 million in just 2010. That means within a span of less than of just 10 years, the number grew from 45,000 to more than 3 millions. Imagine the kind of swell it's witnessed. And now in 2020, what would be the figure? Another decade, perhaps everyone, all of us. I do not think that there would be any student or teacher in any corner of the world who would have not used this online teaching pedagogy in the last 6 months. So, see how the numbers have grown. This is more than exponential growth. So, these are unimaginable figures. And this is going to be the next trend for now and maybe forever. So, that we'll have to take into consideration. Coming to the topic of blended learning, what do we understand by blended learning? As we all know, the blending means fusion, the combination. So combining various components. So Indian education system, believe me, was always about blended education. The blended learning was always there, the blend of theory and practice, the blend of uh, contemporary and futuristic, the blend of online and offline. So, in the last 2 decades, if you see, there has always, after the computers came into picture, there has always been some practical, some assignments, some projects that the Indian education system has been doing, and they were technologically dependent. Only that the pace was slightly slow when it came into the system, and now the pace has tremendously increased. So, today, when we say the blended learning, as the term explains itself, it is a learning of online as well as offline mixed in certain proportions. These proportions may vary from organization to organization, from teacher to teacher, from even it would be important to take into account the stakeholders. If the students cannot let the students also participate in deciding as to in what proportion they would like to have the blended learning differentiated between the online modes and the offline modes. That is the traditional classroom teaching method. Friends, blended learning is also known by many other terminologies. It is also known as technologically supported learning mode. It is also known as technology mediated learning. It is also known as hybrid learning. It is also known as mixed mode learning. So, all these are different synonyms and names of blended learning. Few people, few authors have tried to differentiate them. Very thinly, they have been able to do it, but trust me, these are more or less is the same name for the blended learning method. There are four different kinds of learning. If you want to understand the blended learning properly, you will have to understand these four methods. One was the most primitive was the traditional classroom method. The second was the e-learning method. And the third is the blended learning method. And the last, slightly different, very slightly different, is the hybrid learning method. Coming to the first one, which we call as traditional learning method. This is nothing but what we used to do throughout our life, that we used to meet our students in our classrooms, the surrounded walls, and where we used to had a whiteboard and markers at a blackboard and white chalks. And we typically delivered a lecture of whatever duration it be to the students, made some pictorial representations, made some illustrations on the board, given some examples to them, and tried to make the message go down to each of them whatever we wanted to teach. The system had its root in ancient India, where the four walls were not there, but the Gurukul was there. The students came to ashram. They were in direct contact, face to face contact, eye to eye contact with their gurus. the teachers, and who used to teach them some theoretical lessons, and then they also sent them for some practical learning experiences in and around the ashrams. They were taught the life learning skills, the skills which could have enabled them to either become and fit into some cadre of maybe a king, or maybe a mantri, or maybe a, the third administrative cadre, or the service cadre in those kingship days. And then from there, the education system of the country, the traditional education system, kept on evolving. We saw the books coming in hard copies. And we are proud to mention that the ancient literature, the most ancient literature in the world, is not any other than our own Rig Veda from India. And so these hard copy books and literatures were made available. Then the students, they were not sent to ashrams, they were sent to schools now. The schools were a much more modern looking ashrams, where you had a fixed schedule, where you had a fixed time to spend, where you had number of differentiated subjects and number of differentiated teachers. Now each of them delivered a particular module, and the students tried to grasp all those lessons that were taught to them. From this traditional schooling and traditional colleging system, the it kept on evolving. And as it kept on evolving, we saw that there was of late a PowerPoint system came into picture. Earlier, a LED projector came into picture. The overhead lamp projector came into picture. So the classroom was evolving. The indicators were very much there that something is changing. And the teachers and the students, they kept on embracing this change over the period of time. From this traditional classroom system, suddenly with the computer coming into the picture, and many learning platforms started spurting in different parts of the world. Somebody made a platform, and somebody started learning, and somebody started using it. So from there, this e-learning started evolving as a separate discipline. Trust me, the classroom and the e-learning were initially two different things, and the fusion was never imagined very early. Now, when these e-learning modules were there, these were less accredited, these were less peer reviewed, less people resorted to it. And that's all happened because, the country was not completely technologically enabled to accept this online learning medium. Only selected few cities, selected few people had access to computers, had access to internet, had access to technology, which could have enabled this learning process in a hassle-free manner. If you see the e-learning process, even today, many people, many villages, many remote places, they are still struggling to get hands-on onto this e-learning methods. Though the mobile phone numbers in the country today are more than the total population of the country, but still the connectivity issues, the kind of processors, the kind of technology, the kind of handsets that they are using may not be conducive to learning for all this new online modules. And thus, the technology remains a big limitation for all the learners who want to adopt this method, but still are unable to. From e-learning, then there came upon a blended learning method. This was a third method that evolved in due course. And what happened, that the faculties who used to teach in classroom thought that it would be better to delegate a certain part of their syllabi and curriculum in a different method of instruction, so that they can save some time and emphasize more on certain part of syllabi, rather than spreading their efforts into the entire part and not being able to cover some specialized parts in specialized manner with special emphasis. Thus, this blended learning method started evolving. And when this blended method started evolving, it had certain components in theory which was taught in traditional classroom method, where the students again reached to a particular location, which was their classroom, and the faculties again came up with their lecture modules ready, which they delivered. And then they started deciding, okay, let us do some kind of assignments at your home, and I'll be able to mentor you through an video interface at your home itself. So those kind of methods started creeping in into the our education system, which today formally has taken the shape of blended learning method. Blended learning has been defined by different authors in many number of ways, in numerous ways. But we'll have to understand it in very simple terms that this is a fusion of, a combination of certain part of face-to-face contact learning and certain part of online learning method from a distance. Maybe the reader can have it in a place of his choice. We'll have to also understand that a fourth category, a fourth term, which is now being talked as a different than what we call today's blended learning. They call it hybrid learning. Hybrid learning is nothing but just one element gets added into the blended learning. That is, some hard copy notes are also supplied. That means you have four components here. That is, one component is the traditional classroom teaching method, which we have already discussed. The second method is there would be a component of e-learning method. That means some part of the portion would be covered through this e-learning modes and methods, which now together becomes blended learning. And then a new dimension gets added, that you would be given some practical sessions, field visits, some hard copy notes, some other study materials, and all this together becomes hybrid learning. So hybrid learning, synonymously used as blended learning, is today one of the best options, and I tell you is going to be the future of learning. Few recent newspaper articles questioned that whether we require teachers now after this online education has come. Remember, my dear friends, teachers would always be there. The online platforms and the various applications cannot play the role of a teacher, cannot understand and specifically uh, solve the doubts of every student, cannot connect with them individually, and the most important thing, cannot motivate them. So motivation and facilitation, these things can be done only by teachers. So the role of teacher can never be compromised. It can only be changed in approach. The teachers now become more as a mentors, guides, and coach. As I told you that the model has changed from the sage on the stage to guide on the side. So though you are on the side now, though you may not be in the stage now, though you may not be in the front and the in the spotlight, but still you remain a very critical, important element of the entire learning management system. When we say that the sage on the stage to guide on the side, the blended learning has also component of personalized learning, where you sit in a space of your own choice, and thus it is also known as wisdom in lonesome, that you gain knowledge in a situation where you are alone and you are in the best mood to study. It is also known as cognition in seclusion. So you gain knowledge when you are alone. And this is what is the uniqueness of blended learning method. The e-learning component provides you with a lot of flexibility, which is otherwise not available in a classroom method. I would briefly discuss the advantages of our online learning methods, and the biggest one is personalized learning environment. Friends, personalized learning environment is very essential. In a classroom like situation, not every student is very comfortable. Some of the students I've seen are typically very hesitant in asking questions, in clearing their doubts with the faculties. They fear what my other colleagues will think. And that stops them from raising their hands and standing and asking questions very firmly. So, this is now avoided when you are uh, able to locate yourself in a personalized study space. If you are in a closed room and a closed space where you are alone, you can have number of methods through which you can relearn whatever has been taught. You can raise the queries through various asynchronous or synchronous methods. You can chat with your faculty as many times as you want. You can send emails, you can leave messages, and from where you can get responses. So this enables you, this saves you from all those kind of mental stigma of not asking the questions into the classroom like environment. This also means that you have flexibility of time and mood. That suppose if you have a e component to be learned, that means uh, you can fix your time. Suppose at 10 o'clock in the morning you have some business, that means you can learn it at 11 o'clock. So you can choose your time, you can decide your time. Suppose sometime you are not feeling like learning, you are somewhere else, you are mentally not prepared to take the lessons right now, so you have a choice, but this choice was not available in the classroom. You could not tell your teachers, dear sir, dear ma'am, I'm not willing to learn at this hour, so please come at some other time. It could be disastrous, right? So this flexibility of choice of time, of choice of adjusting the learning time according to our mood, this all are great enablers. you know when you are in the best mood of learning, your grasping speed increases tremendously. So that means you are going to learn a lot of lessons in very less time, so the pace of learning increases. So these are very important advantages that any student can get. The other very important advantage is you can control the pace of the learning. Remember, in classroom, in the traditional setups, a teacher used to speak in his own pace, which sometimes can be suitable to certain group of students. But certain students in the classroom would not be able to manage to learn in the same speed in which the teacher is teaching. Sometimes there are we know there are a number of research papers on cognition and psychology which says that not all the students are equally good and can learn at the same pace. So that means, can we provide a differential learning experience in the classroom? I suppose no. Suppose we slow down the speed for the slow learners, the fast learners will get bored. They would think that the examples being given to them are very basic examples, and they would not remain entertained and engaged with the teaching material. So that remains a challenge, managing between the different learners of different abilities. But that the same problem is overcome when it comes to a personalized learning environment. Today, if I want to learn a program from an online learning platform, I can control the pace of the learning. I can pause it if I get some urgent work. I can just pause it and then I can leave. Similarly, I can go back and rewatch this. Suppose I missed some terminology, I missed some concept, I couldn't understand this some concept, then I can just rewind or go back to certain distance and can restart, so that I get to hear those concepts again and again till I develop a mastery on those concepts. These are the real advantages. That means in the classroom system, where some students could have missed the concept because of the pace of the teacher and could never learn those concepts later, and thus were susceptible in the examinations and in their life, those people can now develop a mastery in their subjects which they could not learn in classroom through an online mode. And so this system prepare most of the students to and beyond an optimum level, which was perhaps not possible in the classroom. Friends, we all are teachers. We know, and we have been into classrooms. We know, we have conducted tests that not all students perform equally well. We have seen that if you take a test of maybe 100 marks, somebody scores 95 also, and somebody scores 25 also. That means there is a huge gap. So this gaps is actually the causative factors of the gaps have to be analyzed. That means we delivered the same lecture, but why some students could not grasp it while the others performed very well. Now imagine if the same kind of content is delivered in on online mode, and every student had that facility to rewatch and rewatch it again and again. I hope every student would develop some level of mastery into it. And if not 95, most of them would score above 70, 75. That means the students, the whole bunch of students are prepared in a better way rather than the kind of results that we see in a classroom teaching mode. Then they can fast forward. Some of the students who are very fast learners cannot ask teachers to go very fast because there are other students in the class. But in online mode, suppose if I know certain concept, if I am learning certain concept very fast, I can just rush and I can advance to the new topics, the higher concepts of the same topic. So the fast forwarding, the pausing, the rewatching, all these are an absolute advantages of uh, all this blended learning methods, which was not there in the traditional classroom methods. A same platter, whether you like, suppose you go to restaurant, you may like to order the foods of your choices, but in classroom methods, friends, it is the same platter for all. It may be same Gujarati thali, same Andhra thali, or anything like that. So not everyone would like to eat the same menu. They would have different taste buds, different preferences, and so is the case in the education also. Similarly, this online learning modes have also provided us with the opportunity to learn the modules of our choice, which was may not have been possible in the classroom methods. We can just log into any of the courses, enroll in any of the programs that is offered, and this is a wide variety which may not be available in any organization as such in classroom teachings. So the variety, the wide range that is available to learners through these online modes is a huge addition to our existing classroom teaching. Suppose today I teach forensic science. There are a number of modules which are part of my syllabi. I try to give a comprehensive coverage to my students. But still I know that there are a number of remote concepts of forensics which I am not able to touch in a span of 2 years of master's program. So the students have this choice, have this opportunity today to go and learn this concept, this remote topics, this remote ideas from some other learning platforms. And the government today has also given this flexibility of learning to all the learners of all courses. Today, you know, the UGC has also provided with the opportunity that 20% of the credits can be earned by online teaching mediums which are approved by the university or university grants commission. Then one of the other big advantage of blended learning is that the teacher is present around 24/7, 365 around the student. Imagine this was not possible in the traditional classroom method when we used to be watching your students or mentoring them between 10 to 5 or 10 to 6 or maybe 11 to 5, whatever the university or school timings was. You could not mentor them beyond that time. That was a space disadvantage, locational disadvantage. That is now overcome with I'm receiving some questions. I'll keep on answering them. So this was not possible. But imagine with the blend of learning of online into the classroom mode, you can supervise your students between 10 to 6. Additionally, you can supervise them, you can mentor them, you can guide them, you can coach them, you can motivate them, you can teach them in any odd hour of the day as well as the night. Whenever the student feels like he wants access to some of your pre-recorded lectures, pre-taped lectures, he can just switch on his system and can have access to it. Every student today has a laptop or maybe a handset, mobile phone, and access to all such materials which you have provided to them is very easy now. Thus, you can be available for your students through your online pre-recorded lectures or for a video conferencing chat for the entire day. So time here is not a limitation anymore for any learner or for any tutor. So this 24/7 365 is a huge advantage. I am just getting some of my assignments of my students, some calls of my students late in the night to understand certain topics. And what I can do, sometimes I speak to them, sometimes I just forward some reading materials to them. Sometimes I just forward them some of my PowerPoint materials. Some of the time I forward them my pre-video recorded lectures to them. So the other day, the student can, just go through those video lectures and again come back to me if there any doubt persists. Friends, imagine our teachers used to say to us when we were in universities that come having read the topic into the classroom so that you can understand it better. Imagine if the students today get a pre-recorded trailer of your lecture in a video mode, how easy it would be for them to understand as to what they're going to learn today and as to what are the major concepts that they're going to deal into the classrooms today. Friends, remember these trailers are very important, as important as a trailer of movie. We choose our movie that we are going to watch based on what kind of trailer, how captivating is the trailer. Similarly, if your video records the pre-recorded lectures, the demonstrations, the illustrations, the virtual teachings are so good in quality, I'm sure you will be one of the best and most engaged teacher inside the classroom and outside the classroom for all your tutees. All of them will follow your lectures very keenly and very closely to enhance their learning skills. The blended learning method also provides us with differentiated instruction methods. In the classroom, normally the topic whichever we are discussing is the same for all the group of 40 or 50 students or 30 students, whatever the batch size be. In case of blended learning, you can see that there are different rate of progress of different learners. And so there would be some learner who would be already in an advanced stage of learning, and there would be some learners who would be still in the uh, first half or the initial part of the topics. So the differentiated instructions also helps us a lot in managing our learning skills. The classroom teaching, my dear friends, remember, is logistically very expensive. Today, all of you are there, and the UCA Tarsadia University has been able to offer this program absolutely free of cost, which is completely appreciated. Imagine what would have been the combined expenditure of all these 4,200 participants reaching to the classroom of UCA Tarsadia, a speaker coming to the UCA Tarsadia University, the number of formalities, the number of certifications, the number of IT instruments, the electricity bill, the AC bill, the number of many other things, the fuel you would have burnt in reaching the. I mean, there was a huge cost of logistics involved in all these teaching methods, which was traditional. Now we all have met today on an online platform, and see, all of us have been able to manage it with the least minimum cost possible. And that's why, see, the charges of the program are so less or almost free of cost. So this saves you a lot of money also. Logistical movements are controlled to a large extent. Similarly, this gives you a locational advantage also. Your time, you have saved a lot of time in not traveling to the Ukatasarya University. You have saved a lot of energy in not traveling to the Ukatasarya University. So you have become mobility free, you have become locationally independent, and today wherever you are in different parts of the world, different parts of the state and the country, you are being able to connect with us and learn this model. Remember, few people argue that perhaps the blended learning is not going to create the same kind of impact that had the classroom had. They used to say that by looking into the eyes of the students, we can understand whether he has understood the topic or not. By looking at the body language of the student, we can understand whether he has understood or not. So these things, they argue, that are not possible in the blended learning or online learning methods. Friends, it is absolutely possible. It depends upon the curator of the program as to how the program has been curated. You remember, if you see the programs of the learning platforms available, I do not want to advertise any single one, but take an example of Coursera or maybe EDX. If you take a program, there are checkpoints where you need to stop and answer a query, answer a particular question, and then only you can progress further. If you fail to answer, which is perceived as that you have failed in evaluation, which otherwise means that you have not followed the topic in a keen manner, that means you'll have to go back and relearn the topic. So those checks and balances systems are still there. They can still verify whether you are there or not. So it all depends upon the technology supporter and curator of the program as to how to make a program effectively and keep on evaluating the students as to whether they are participating or not. The other advantage is the outreach of these programs. By traditional method of teaching in a classroom, you could have reached to a group of students, whatever be the numbers, maybe 30, 40, 50, 100 maximum, not beyond that. And these were the students who were from almost the same locality, who traveled to this institution and met the teacher in the classroom and learned the topic. So the outreach was limited. With the present system of blended learning, where one component is now delivered through an online mode, through an internet intranet medium, that means you are able to reach to any part, any corner of the world. Your presence is pan globe. Now you can cater to the learning requirements of any of your tutees, students, learner, colleagues. You can help any one of them across the world to learn the concept that you wanted to teach otherwise in the classroom. So the global outreach is a huge facilitator. Trust me, the best of the programs are not always available in your locality. It is not possible that one university runs all the best programs. It is not possible that all the best professors are housed in a single university. It is not possible the best assignments, the best demonstrations, the best instruments, the best laboratory facilities are housed in a single university. No, absolutely not. That means there are certain resources which are, kind of our wish, our dream, that uh, maybe we could have learnt it from a particular professor. Maybe we could have, worked on a particular instrument which is located in certain other universities. So this is the kind of enabler this online platform is. Today, you can take up a program from Harvard University. Today, you can take a program from MIT. Today, you can take a program for any other university of any other country, any other locality, by still being at your home, by still being at your personalized learning space. And what Corona has done, it has brought a sea change in the approach that this institutions also used to, offer the programs in a way. Earlier, most of the programs were chargeable. See how the change that has come in. Now, many of the programs are being offered free by most of the prestigious universities of the world. You can learn whatever you want from whatever university you want. You can learn those crafts of your field, crafts of your trade. And while learning, if you want, there are different kind of options. Some of them even provide free certifications also, and some of them have options of chargeable certifications. So there are two things. One is learning. If you are just interested in learning something just to enhance your skills, that means you just need to learn the lessons. You may or may not require a certificate. While the other thing, if you want to enrich your profile for your professional growth, that means you may have to use uh, mm, you may have to obtain a certification, for which certain universities are are providing it on payment basis, while the other universities are providing it absolutely free of cost. So there are different kinds of models that are existing in the world. So the best thing is that the global outreach that this platform provides, you need to take the advantage of this. And friends, uh, don't take it as a joke, but there was a post on LinkedIn, my profile, some of my army friend has posted that, within a span of 60 days of lockdown, he could gain 110 certifications. So I know this number is huge and, far from belief, but maybe it can be done. I don't argue that all of us should have 110 certifications, but there is nothing bad about getting some certifications, upgrading our skills, upgrading ourselves from the best of the institutions across the globe. One of the other advantages that the learners are in control in the e-learning module. While in the classroom teaching, the educators were in the control of the entire ecosystem and environment. Educators decided as to how the flow of the topic would be, what would be the contents that would be covered, and how the contents would be taught. It was all decided by educators. And the learners had just the options of raising few queries, interrupting the teacher, and rest they could not have controlled. But in the e-learning models, I have a choice of selecting the topic that today I want to learn. Not necessarily I should go in a sequence of syllabi that normally teachers used to teach. I can start with somewhere in the syllabus of a topic of my choice, or the topic which I understand as the most conveniently. So this is how the learners can control their learning method. The learners can control today as to which subject they want to learn first. The learner can control which topic of which subject they want to learn first. The learner can control which teacher's lecture they want to hear first. The learner can control to choose a particular part of lecture to be heard first, rather than hearing it from start and then moving towards the end. No, it can be, complete freedom. It is completely flexible, and the learners have lot of opportunities, lot of decision making power in this e-learning process. So suppose when you see that there's a blended learning, so that means some part is educator control, and some part is learner control. That together can bring very good results of learning for the students, and the satisfaction index for the educators as well as for learners would be very, very high if the learners perform well, if the learners gets mastery over their topics. So overall it is a win-win situation for both of them, the teacher who was a teacher in the classroom and the teacher who was a facilitator outside the classroom in the e-learning module. Another advantage is data tracking is quick and convenient. Friends, suppose if we are asked today in classroom teaching system, we used to conduct assignments to gauge as to whether how much our students have understood our topic. Remember, we will not be able to recall the understanding level or the marks obtained level of each of the people manually. But imagine, if we want to track as to how our students have progressed in learning, it can be easily tracked. If your IT support system, if your technology enabler of your organizer is very good, he will give you a real-time quick data as to how many students have crossed stage 1 of your topic, how many students have crossed stage 2 of your topic, or who is the student who is in the most advanced stage of the topic, who is the student who is lagging behind and is still reeling behind in the last, the most primitive stage of the topic. So as an educator, it has got a lot of importance, because I know how to do the hand holding of the students who are lagging behind, which would have not been possible in a traditional classroom teaching method. But my dear friends, never take it as a complete dependency on online learning method alone. Please remember, I am advocating for blended learning method. That means that I'm still advocating for a good proportion of teaching to be done in the classroom method. The online teaching methods can be further enabler, supplementary knowledge, improving the learning system, and transforming the learning system. It cannot alone make for a holistic learning method as of today. So You need to provide this all online materials, all this online methods in a good amount, only to supplement whatever you teach in classroom. You This methods just cannot replace the value and the pedagogical immense value of the pedagogy of the classroom teaching. That always remains a very critical component of teaching and learning. I would also like to discuss with you what are the challenges of this online teaching or blended learning methods. Friends, these may be the challenges existing today. Tomorrow it might be overcome. The technology is growing very fast. The technology is progressing in a rapid pace. We cannot imagine what these people who are developers and programmers they are imagining. Nobody has thought that we would, in maybe in the year 2000, that how we will see the DNA replicating, or that we will be able to see it. But today, wonderful animations, wonderful videos are there, wonderful science videos, wonderful lab videos, wonderful videos on other subjects are available. I'll just discuss you a small case of forensic science, because I'm biased because I'm from forensic domain. That's why I'll cite an example. Uh, at Whenever any crime happened, uh, the police are the first responders. They reach to a crime scene, and when they reach to crime scene, they normally encounter a lot of evidences. There might be blood spattering, there might be firearms lying, there might be a knife lying, there may be a dead body, there may be saliva. It may be a case of sexual assault, and thus the sexual assault evidences would be there. There would be cloth pieces, there can be a vehicular accident, there could be fractures of glasses, and n number of evidences which can be encountered on a crime scene. The police people are normally not very trained in handling all this class of evidences. So, as a matter of fact, normally some forensic scientists who are known as mobile scientific officers or mobile forensic officers, they used to accompany these police officers on the crime scene for uh, collection of evidences and identification of evidences. Now, there was a limitation to this. Not everybody was trained in all subjects equally. The problem was that if a biological forensic scientist who was expert of DNA went into a crime scene, he was very good at collecting the blood and other DNA samples, biological samples. But he faced certain difficulties and challenges in collecting the evidences of maybe which were of physics domain, which were of chemistry domain. He could not collect the drugs and poisons properly. He could not collect the pieces of glass properly. He did not know how to do the panchnama and how to send the body for postmortem. So, if you think from the other side also, it is not possible to send all the forensic scientists on the crime scene because you need people in lab to do the rest of the analysis work. Thus, a teleforensic technology was evolved. Now, this teleforensic technology is a great enabler today. That one forensic scientist goes to crime scene for collection of evidences, and rest of the forensic scientists are available in the lab on a video conferencing mode. There would be an expert of physics, chemistry, biology, ballistic expert, fingerprint expert, and whatnot on a video interface available who would guide this single forensic scientist on the crime scene as to how to process the crime scene and different evidences of different nature and collect them properly so that proper analysis and justice can be delivered. Thus, there is an importance of this technology, of this video technology, which can never be overemphasized. It helps you to connect with the best and the best in all sorts of things, be it learning, be it practice, be it your profession, all these things. Today, all the meetings and trainings across the world are happening online. All the scheduled meetings which were there for face-to-face interaction have been cancelled. Friends, I'm also looking about the executive training programs of my police person in my university. So I know how the physical presence has today become very, very impossible. And this, we have also changed gears, we have also adapted, and now we are also planning to impart these training programs in a different mode. So, one of the real challenges that today we face is integration of technology into variety of subjects. Few people believe that the technology enabled learning is a wonderful idea as far as humanities are concerned, or the subjects where there is very less practical component is concerned. Maybe true, maybe partially true. But now I believe that there are a number of modules which have evolved. The developers, programmers, and the program curators are doing a wonderful job. And now there are a number of scientific and virtual training modes available. And thus, a learner can still learn from different mode and even do conduct practicals. I do not equate this virtual practicals with real practicals. There would always be differences. And that's why I say this is a challenge. There would always be a difference, but still, learning step by step practical demonstration on a virtual platform is nevertheless is going to add some value. However, whenever you get an opportunity, there should always be a real practical opportunity available to the learners that they can perform. Convincing the organization, stakeholders, students, and fraternal colleagues for this blended learning method is another challenge. Remember, friends, not all of us are, located in big cities and the big best of the universities. All of us are not equally privileged. There are universities and colleges in the remote part of the country where not even a good library, not even a good internet, not even a good computer is there. So how do you convince your organization that there is an alternative model existing and which is going to be the future of learning? Thus, we need to change ourselves. We need to adapt to this new technology. So convincing the stakeholders, sometimes the principals, sometimes the head of the offices, they might, be of a different generation, of a different school of thought. They would always feel that, no, the classroom teaching is going to be whole and soul. There would not be any other supplementary methods. I have heard people talking about, CCTV cameras in the classroom. I've heard people talking about many other monitoring system in the classroom that teachers go and deliver entire content in a rigorous manner in the classroom itself. And they thought that whatever the online is just, they are just not convinced that this is a good utilization of time. They think that it is a convenience for faculties. It is an excuse for faculties, those who do not want to come to the classroom. It is not the complete truth. It is not the complete truth. And today or tomorrow, these people will have to understand and appreciate that a new powerful system is emerging, which cannot be ignored and ignored at only the peril of the institution's reputation. Today, the best institutions are those which are very advanced in technology enabled learning. The IITs, the MITs, all those have progressed because of their might of their technologies, and they have used this might of their technology in supporting the learning process very adequately. Thus, you need to go back. You need to convince your fraternity. First of all, the first prime responsibility is to convince yourself whether you are ready to take the blended learning methods, whether you are prepared enough to teach certain part in institution and the rest of the part in uh, online mode, whether you can make those efforts, which would be herculean at the beginning, but slowly as you go on curating modules, the task would go on easier. You would just have to modify and upgrade it to certain level. Thus, the first prime task is to convince yourself. And all 4,200 people who are with me today in the morning, I tell you, it is the earlier you convince yourself, the better it is. Don't be delayed in this, because this is right there now. And thus, you need to thus embrace this. And once you are convinced that this you are going to take this ahead, please convince your other stakeholders, your organization, the management, that please bring into place the kind of technology that you require. Please bring in good computer systems, good applications, good recording spaces for you, good recording devices for you, good technology supporters for you, and everything which can work as a facilitator for you in designing, conceiving, and presenting the courses in an innovative manner. Third thing is convincing your students is going to be a challenge. Believe me, when the UGC was still pondering over how to conduct the examinations for this end semester, and I was in touch with most of my students, there were a number of apprehensions as to, sir, how will we come back? There is no way of commuting back to Gandhinagar. And they were also apprehensive, sir, that some of us are located in a remote location. So how will we prepare our assignment? How will submit our assignment? So you'll have to be also a psychological mentor for them. You'll have to convince that none of their interests would be harmed. Their interests would be completely safeguarded, and this would only aid in their comfort of being at home and still continue learning and continue giving examinations from a distance place. So convincing your stakeholders, students, and yourself remains of prime importance. The third challenge is technology, as I had already mentioned. Not all of us are equally privileged. So some institutions are far ahead in terms of the kind of technology. We can see UCAT Arsadia has a wonderful platform today, and we all are meeting. A lot of people across the globe, we are here today. Not all institutions are able to resort. The free technologies which are available, it's absolutely wonderful to use. But there should be sufficient infrastructure within the organization to use this free technologies. So the infrastructure beefing up is equally important. And the technology technology is fast changing. So you'll have to keep it on upgrading also. Thus, the organizations need to equally invest as they had invested on teachers and other library materials and other infrastructure of the university and institution. They now also need to come forward and invest heavily on this kind of technological infrastructures which enable such kind of learning platforms. The fourth, and I considered it to be the biggest challenge, curating the program. I'm seeing that some participants are also questioning as to how to do this kind of teaching. Friend, you'll have to and that all your learners are different. So you'll have to curate a content which caters to the requirement of all. You'll have to create a content which has evaluation methods embedded into it so that you can progress as to how your learners are learning the modules. You will have to create in a way that you become engaging, that your students do not leave you. uh, One of the biggest disadvantage with this online mode is you can just switch off your video cam and you can go on a sleep mode. And it is happening in many webinars. This is one of the most prevalent practices. So thus, to avoid this, you just cannot control it. So what you can do is you yourself can become more engaging. You'll have to create your contents in such interesting manner that they remain interested and entangled with you. They do not leave your classroom, they do not leave your modules in between. Sometimes people say that e-learning, becomes more important and learning takes a backseat. The people flips from their learning classrooms to checking their emails, checking their social media updates, checking blah blah blah, n number of things, and the learning they just keep it switch on. They never follow it. It might happen. So keeping them hooked to your lecture is going to be a huge challenge, and thus your lecture content should be phenomenally innovative. It should be and you'll have to think upon it. How can you make it more engaging? When I was doing some PowerPoint teaching long back, maybe 5 years ago, in my classroom, one of the IPS officers suggested me, why don't you use cartoons in your slides? And I was like, cartoons are, will it be a good thing to present in classroom? But I started doing it once, and you'll not believe the day I started using cartoons, the students' eyeballs were hooked to the cartoon only. They never read the text. Thus, I got to know that the interesting parts, the cartoons can be interesting parts for them. Thus, now my slides contain lots of cartoons, funny things, and many other things which can grab the eyeballs. So my students never leave the slides whichever I present to them. And through this cartoons, it should not only be a funny thing, it should have some message. So it should be related to the content that you want to discuss. So similarly, while you are curating it, can you present good videos? Can you present the videos which captivates the listeners? Can you create good audios? Can you create wonderful slides which can be a good learning experience for the learners? Then the other limitation is limitation of IT literacy. Friends, we are teachers of different subjects. Not all of us are people of cybersecurity and information technology. So that means that our IT literacy level is different, which means some of us would be very good in handling these technologies and playing with the technologies and in delivering lectures through these technological modes. While I'm sure there would be few who would find it very difficult, who would have not used this technology much in their activities till today, who had been doing only classroom teaching and hard copy teaching so far. So the literacy of this technology has to be raised, and this is what we are doing today. The rest of the sessions, I'm sure, would upskill you in terms of usage of technology, in terms of how these online teaching modes can be used in a very effective manner. Thus, the IT literacy level of both the students as well as teachers have to be upgraded. I'm sure in coming times, even the UGC HRDCs will come up with more IT enabling programs. We need to upgrade our IT skills uh, very much, so that we can use the available uh, treasure of technologies. There are number of platforms available which can be used effectively. Once I was talking with one of my senior professors of NIEPA, National Institute of Planning Administration, and we were just discussing as to how do we miss our lectures during any conferences and seminars, and how do we cover it. And he told me, this is a story of some 5 7 years ago, and he told me, Dr. Chaudhary, I never miss a lecture. He was already using number of platforms. He was so good in IT skills. He was always pre-recording his lectures, and his students never missed him in the classroom, albeit his physical presence. Whenever he went for any conference or official assignment, there were pre-recorded lectures available for students for the contents that he wanted to deliver. So if some of the professors have done it 5 7 years ago, and I have started doing it of late, why can't all of us, start doing it? And those who find it difficult, I tell you, don't ignore it. Just tie up with your colleagues who are very good at it and learn the methods. There is no harm in learning, and we learn at all stages of our life. We'll have to accept that not knowing is not a crime, but ignoring, leaving the opportunity of learning, perhaps would be detriment to our cause. Then coming to the network infrastructure, we often talk about 4G, 5G, and the Airtel girl become very popular just because of the speed of internet. But all have to understand that we are living in different part of the country. We have a different kind of network infrastructure and network connectivity in place. We might have a phone which is 5G enabled or 4G enabled, but sometimes not even 2G network is being found at certain locations. You would have heard the Ministry of IT, MITI, Ministry of Electronics and IT, number of times, issuing warning to the service providers as to why the call drops are increasing, why the internet connectivity is so poor. So this is going to be a challenge. Unless you have a good connectivity, you will not be able to learn without disruptions. There will be a lot of uh, connectivity issues, and you would be, yes, just getting frustrated and bored if the learning process is not smooth, if it is not hassle free. So network infrastructure is another critical thing that all the institutions should now slowly work upon. There are connectivities being given by government bodies, by UGCs and many national knowledge network, but if it is not available, the universities and institutes should volunteer themselves on their own to get good network facilities being made available to their faculties and students. Most of the advertisement these days, if you see, the institutions rise the Wi-Fi campus. So you see how importance is being attached to the connectivity, because if we are connected with internet, we are connected with the world. If we are not, that means we are in oblivion, we are in isolation. Thus network connectivity is going to be very, very important. Another important challenge that I told many colleagues often they feel that that is the case. One of that is the connectivity. As I told you, that there is a lot of argument going that the physical presence has got a different impact. The students are disciplined. The students, we learn from their eyes that they have not understood. All these things. So connectivity is important. Today, see, online it is not possible because see, today I'm speaking and to around 4,200 plus people here out here, but I do not know if all are following to me. I do not know if all are connected. Connectivity is only possible in a classroom situation where there is a small group of 30 or 40 people and a teacher can interact typically perhaps with everyone. That's why I'm not advocating for either of this in individual manner. I'm talking and advocating for blended learning method. That means you also have a classroom method and e-learning method. So in e-learning, though I'm limited that I'm not able to interact with you physically, but that is compensated when we meet in classroom in a physical method and we interact with each other. Thus, blended learning provides me with an opportunity to know you personally and to interact with you face to face, as also additionally being available to you when an interaction is perhaps not necessary. I also discussed one of the challenges maintaining the focus of the student. Many students in classroom also it happens. Sometimes the students are just looking up to you, staring at you, but they are just mentally they are not present there. So even there, perhaps may be able to notice it and control it. You may not be able to notice it and control it. But in an online mode, you will not be able to notice and control it. The only checking method is the performance evaluation, which is interrupted performance evaluation methods. But those interruptions are generally, if you look at the present programs, are generally one questions or two questions interruptions, which may not cover the entire concept that you have discussed in a time frame. Thus, yes, to an extent you can control the focus, but still largely the students have the independence of the focus deviance. That is always a problem and challenge that is going to be there. Motivating students. When I use, I see when I enter into a classroom and I see most of the students, perhaps they're not being able to understand a particular topic, or if they perform bad in a class test, what I can do is I can just talk to them. I can just speak to them, and I can just tell them number of motivational stories. I can just bring their chins up. I can just revitalize their spirits, and I can tell them number of stories, number of incidences wherein students have rise like anything from a bottom line, which sometimes is not possible to embed those stories, to embed that kind of interaction in an online medium. Our methods are confined to a particular task oriented module, and that's why our talks are limited, and within that realms only we confine our discussions. So if the student is not motivated for a topic, you sometimes feel helpless in an online mode. That's why again the blended learning is going to be the solution. That suppose if some student is not performing well in the online educational mode, you are going to interact and meet with him in the physical classroom, and wherein you can still speak to him and you can still bring his spirits back, and you can still push him for learning certain concept which earlier he was not interested in. So that is a challenge which it can be overcome through blended learning process. uh, the problems of being availability of the speakers, the that remains a challenge, and trust me, there are mediums of interactions already available in most of the platforms which you can utilize optimally to address your students in a manner you want to. There are asynchronous methods where you can have chat rooms, forums for discussion available for all the learners where they can discuss any concept. On the other hand, there are synchronous modes where a faculty makes himself available. He comes on a video conferencing call, and he can speak to the student, solve his queries, and many other dilemmas which a student faces during the learning method or experience. As far as planning and delivery is concerned, I have seen a question in the chat box that how do you use it in your classroom? Again, you don't use it in classroom. You do it in your preparation time. You will have to bifurcate. You'll have to segregate your entire learning material, the learning content, into two parts. You'll have to find out as to what part can be delivered in classroom method more conveniently, what part of the learning material can be delivered into an online mode more conveniently. Once you identify these things, you need to identify the subtopics and contents. Once the topic is decided, the subtopics and contents needs to be finalized very carefully and thoroughly. You'll have to add the illustrations, demonstrations, key understanding and learning objectives, learning outcomes, what you're expecting, the key questions that the students need to answer after learning a certain topic. And after all these, make it visually very, very interesting. Once the programs are visually interesting, the students would remain hooked to it. Once you have identified the visual interaction methods, you now need to substitute and supplement it with good audio recordings. So you should be your voice should be very good. If suppose you feel that somebody else also needs to speak up, perhaps somebody with a better voice quality can speak up, those facilities are now available. If you have ever curated a MOOC program, you understand, you know that there is a team of people who do this. So somebody plays the role of the orator, somebody plays the role of the content writer, somebody plays the role of technology supporter, somebody is an editor. So similarly, you can still build a team also. Suppose you are a department of botany or department of zoology or maybe department of humanities, so you can make a small team of faculties also to help us, to mutually benefit and curate the contents. While this can be done individually as well, but for better results, a group work can give you better results and better outcomes. So the content and the curation would be wonderfully ahead of what you can maybe individually do. Don't ever forget to provide additional reading lists to your students. However good presentation you make, there will be something which would be not be covered, and there are a number of simultaneous researches going on. So don't fail to motivate your student in reading those additional materials provided. I have heard some of the faculties talking, now you don't need to read anything, just refer to my books, just refer to my notes, just refer to my videos, just refer to my PPTs. And what the students end up doing, they just copy their PPTs into their answer sheets. That means they have not actually resorted to reading any other additional materials. Friends, always feel that there would be some lacuna shortcoming even in our teaching also. Let us accept this, that we will, however well prepared we are, there would be something that would be left over for the students to cover and for additional readings. So always provide this supplementary list to the students so that they can read those things. For evaluations, you can use interruptive evaluations, checkpoints in your video lectures, in your pre-recorded lectures. You can insert and embed quizzes, puzzles, and self-assessment. You can ask students, to self-assess them. You can also do group assessment. You can ask at a time, you can ask during the discussion, and participants are required to perform it either individually or in groups. So those can be done. So while planning the engaging lessons, you'll have to also see the quality of the contents, that those should be very good. Then you should accessible. You should be available. If any student feels at any point of time that there is something which needs to be discussed with the curator of the program, or some information which can be added, or some information which can be substituted or deleted, then again the curator should be open to the ideas. And there should always be a feedback mechanism. Remember, a course prepared today may not have the same relevance tomorrow. So the contents are always getting enriched by the researchers in the field. Similarly, the technologies might also change. So today, a particular platform may not be available tomorrow, may not be accessible tomorrow. So you should always be open to feedbacks. You should always be open to criticisms. Constructive criticisms. You should always be open to listening to your participant stakeholders. Also, if possible, please send all your this materials, study materials, to your peer group for reviews, for feedbacks. This will also help you to upgrade, constantly upgrade your contents. That was the first thing. Timely responses to the questions, that also will depreciate the interest of the learners. So if some doubts can be stopping in furthering advancing the studies, so I'll be stuck somewhere. If you don't respond in quick time, that means I remain stuck. I cannot understand the next concept which is connected with the previous concept if I have not understood the previous one. Thus, timely response in asynchronous or synchronous method is also very, very important in all these methods. The other very, very daunting challenge is, socioeconomic factors, which I have briefly covered. That our country has got different kind of sociological stratifications, has got different kind of economical stratifications. Some of them are economically and socially advantaged groups or classes. The others are not. I personally belong to a remote place in Jharkhand, which for me from here, Gujarat, it takes 55 hours to reach. And I tell you, when I go there, it is a different world. And you, while traveling, you realize, you experience the shift in these two worlds. So, uh, not all of are equally privileged, but this is part of the government policies. And beyond government policies, let us accept that this is also our university social responsibility. I'm not using the word corporate social responsibility. This is USR, university social responsibility. We'll have to hold the hands of our fraternal colleagues who are located in such remote locations, who do not have access to the best of the materials. Friends, we'll have to find out ways as to how we can reach to the students who are locationally and socioeconomically disadvantaged, our peer groups, our colleagues who are again locationally and socioeconomically disadvantaged. The faculties may not have the best of the books which are available in our libraries. The faculties may not have the best of the technologies which are available at our disposal. So we will have to share our resources in some way. We'll have to devise mechanisms as to how we can send any curated material which we have prepared in a city like Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, or Kolkata should reach to every nooks and corners of the country so that everybody is benefited. We'll have to overcome those technological barriers which prevents us from sending this all educational materials to them. Intellectual property rights and all other things are at their own place, but none of our countrymen should be disadvantaged in terms of learning opportunities. And that is why or the policy of inclusiveness has to be there. We need to take all these people into confidence and together to grow together, to grow together, to advance together, to learn together. There are a number of tools available which you can refer. The one of the earliest was Plato. The University of Illinois came up with a programmed logic and automatic teaching code or something organization. So Plato was there in the initial times, and now there are a number. I've heard about the IT people will be able to tell you better that there are Kahoot, there is Screencast-O-Matic, and there are many others which are available. We are meeting today on StreamYard. There are a number of other webinar platforms out there. You have Zoom, you have Google Meet, you have Google Hangouts, you have perhaps Adobe Connect, you have Cisco WebEx. So there are numbers of them available, plenty of them available. So you can use most of them are free. So take full advantage of this, make full use of this in preparing and delivering your contents to your participants, to the people whom you want to connect. And this, I feel, that, friends, once again, I would like to, on a concluding note, I would like to tell you that the world has changed. Believe me, the need of the hour is that we adopt all these technologies and we make full use of it. These are all around us, and the student community is waiting for you to come up with such kind of technological solutions, some kind of technological learning opportunities, where we need to be apt in time. uh, I would like to quote Dr. Rosie said कि जो समय पर काबू रखता है, चाणक्य she had quoted कि जो समय को कंट्रोल करता है वो शिक्षक है. याद रखिए, शिक्षक को भी समय के साथ चलना पड़ेगा. If you miss the bus right now, that means you are going to be lagging behind in this new learning ecosystem which has already taken, its position now. Thank you so much. I hope I have been able to convey some sense to you, and I'm sure the coming lectures would be very, very valuable. Dr. Rosie has been fantastic in extending all the cooperations to me, and she has presented and curated a wonderful program for all of you. I'm sure you will take full advantage of it. Thank you, Dr. Rosie. Thank you, Ukata Sadia University, and all the participants. Friends, namaste to all of you. Thank you.
Sir, what a profound, probing, and elaborate session on blended learning. And I'm sure you are providing first-hand experience, demonstration, and hands-on experience to all the learners what exactly blended learning is by your online discourse, and of course you very generously agreed to pass on some other material that we are going to provide once the session is over. Moving forward into the sessions, I must say that this session is being going to be the most interactive sessions because there are so many questions and relevant comments are coming in. So we would try to take as much as possible till 12 noon. So I would just ask you one by one. Sir, Rekha Garg has asked you that what is the difference between blended learning and hybrid learning, and I remember you clarifying that concept on the 15th or 16 minute of our session, but still in your words if you can define once again.
Rekha ji, thank you for your question. Uh, People have been discussing what are these two models. Trust me, as far as my beliefs are concerned, I consider both of them to be one and the same. I told you in the very beginning that some authors have tried to differentiate these two models, but there is a very thin line of difference which could have been pointed out in these two models. The blended learning, has been kept limited to the concept of blending and fusion of online teaching and classroom teaching. That is what typically they call it as a blended learning. In hybrid, what they call, there will be some social constructivist approach. That means there will be some modules which you need to go and do some field work. Then there would be some study materials that would be shared. Like Dr. Rosie said, that after this online teaching, though I would not be doing any hard classroom teaching, but I would be sharing certain resources, certain other materials for you to study. So that makes the blended learning as hybrid learning. So hybrid is again, hybrid means the fusion of two materials. So hybrid is again fusion of online and offline methods. And also there is a small component, perhaps some of the authors have included, that there would be some modules of field tour, field study, and hard copy approach. That's all. Otherwise, for me, it is also part of blended learning. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for the very well solved query. Second question is from Mr. Viral Patel. How to make students attentive during online teaching? So yeah, yes,
Viralji, you have perhaps just hit the bullseye, because this is going to be the biggest challenge as of now. I do not know, in future some solutions would come, because there is a lot of artificial intelligence creeping in into the system and machine learning. So perhaps in future your machine will be able to tell you that this fellow is just not listening to you, and you can just pull his ears from your place. But as of now, today, what is to be done is that you'll have to depend on your checking systems. In classroom teaching, yes, absolutely, you can control it. But in an online mode, remember, this is a supplementary knowledge. You don't necessarily need to control it, first off. at first place. So give that freedom and flexibility to your students, that let them learn on their own pace. Somebody might not be interested at 10:35 a.m., but he would be interested at maybe 12:30. So I'll give that flexibility to him. Don't control it. Let them learn on their own pace. Remember, there is another lecture perhaps which has been scheduled on how to make them very engaging. What I believe personally, it is the skill of oratory skill, the audio quality of your learning module, and the visuals that you embed in your. That is going to be the most important criteria as to they remain engrossed. Also, if it is a critical certification and there are not a see, I have taken number of online programs so far in my career. I've seen there were certain very critical to my development. So I was very, serious about those programs. I never missed a session. Some of them were just not so critical to my growth. So what I did was I was slightly casual taking those programs. So it all depends on number of parameters. Well, what you can do as a teacher is make the contents very engrossing, make the contents very captivating, make more visuals, include more visuals, more demonstrations into it. Don't keep it like a plain text and being read it. No, nobody can concentrate for a long time. So visually and interactive materials would be recommended for engaging your students. Thank you.
So, sir, I'm happy to listen. A lot of confessions are coming from acclaimed academicians also, that they were also in student mode, so we can understand students' predicament well better. The third question is Dr. Premlata Sen. How can we use blended learning in our classroom? What method used for teaching? Probably she's asking for digital platform.
So there are, Dr. Premlata ji, thank you for your question. There are already existing models. When we say blended learning is delivered in a different way. One is station change management. One is station change management. Most of the institutions already has it in place. Like you can have a computer lab. What you can additionally do is that create more such labs, interactive labs, create more seclusion spaces, and include the timings in the teaching schedules. Normally, what schools and university they do is they have 10 to 6 lectures interrupted only by a lunch break, which versus the condition of lecturers in the post-lunch session. So what you can do is you can have more free spaces, free timings for the students, and during these free timings, which interrupts your teachings, have a teaching session, send them to do some this self-learning modes, and this would already be pre-planned. You will pre-decide as to only this much I'm going to teach, and rest of the you are going to go into the computer lab and you are going to get it learn from yourself, because the materials are already uploaded there on your learning management system. Many institutes and universities are now using learning management system. So you can also monitor whether the students went into the labs, logged into the system, have studied the system, have also submitted their evaluation reports or not. Also remember, the learning management systems are going to be a huge enabler. So in having it in institution and in your classroom is going to be a great advantage. Now the learning management system also provides, we're talking about blended learning. Now there is blended monitoring. The parents is used to monitor their students only outside classroom hours. That means after 6 to another 10 in the morning. So now that your parents, they are just monitoring their students' progress in the classroom also. They know that their students are attending the classes or not, whether the attendance is marked or not, whether they have completed an assignment or not. The parents are getting their login IDs, and they are also monitoring what the marks have obtained by the kids in different papers. So there is already a system in place. All that you need to do is you need to enhance this. You need to capitalize on the existing model and consolidate it further. You just break up your syllabi, teach certain parts, and curate certain parts as online contents, upload it on your learning management system in your institution or in your computer labs through your technological support systems, and ask the students to compulsorily take those lessons as well. Thank you.
I think that sounds quite prudential, sir. And there is another question from Gorachan Biswalji. What do we lose in socioeconomic aspect due to blended learning?
Uh, we do not lose anything. Only thing that we lose is some of our people have not been able to join us in the space of development. Socioeconomically, those who are not, uh, equally advantaged have been left behind. So we need to have policies. I'm sure the Center of Educations and Learnings across the universities would take more researchers into it, take more initiatives to connect these people who are left behind. हम एक सफर पे निकले हैं, विकास के सफर पे निकले हैं, जिसमें कुछ लोग पीछे ना छूट जाएं। ये हमारी एक मोरल जिम्मेदारी है। दिस इज आवर हमारी नैतिक जिम्मेदारी है ये, कि हम अपने सारे लोगों को साथ लेके चले। As we take our family members together, with us in any sojourn or any journey. Similarly, we'll have to see that those people who are the disadvantaged group, who are remotely located, who do not have access, who do not have resources, that they are also taken together. And trust me, socioeconomically, we do not lose anything. This kind of systems are socioeconomically a great enabler. Suppose economically, if I talk, suppose a student from a rich family can pay hefty fees of an institution for a classroom teaching, but the online learning mode is less expensive. So the return on investment is very high. So even the students with little or limited resources can actually enroll into such programs and earn degrees and professional, hikes through this medium. So we gain a lot socioeconomically through this, but we do not lose. As far as sociological conditions are considered, in the big cities, it is all right. In small schools and small, you would have heard, you would have come across the stories, the different castes, they sit separate in a classroom in some of the primitive places and some of the primitive mindsets. The upper caste, they have the front benches and the different kind of setups and problems. Some hostels are made for specific caste and communities, and those are the problems. These are sociological problems which creates more divide into the classrooms. So when it comes to sociological gains, online creates no divide. It is just between the cohesion between your technology and yourself. There's nobody who can claim to be belonging to a upper class or upper category, and nobody is there. So sociologically also it's a huge advantage. Technologically, economically, it's a huge advantage. Just remember that हमें कुछ लोगों के हाथ पकड़ के और साथ लाने हैं जो पीछे छूटे हुए हैं. That's all. Thank you.
Very well said, sir. चुनीलाल जी पूछ रहे हैं कि blended learning is a mode of facilitating students, but they can hesitate to ask questions in online mode. Then how can we motivate them as an active teacher to ask questions?
Okay. Okay, this is debatable, Chunilalji, because I feel ki many of the students see typically as a teacher. What I have seen is I have been keeping my classes very interactive most of the times, and many a time I ask students and teach certain portion coming to the stage replacing me. So I try, but still I find that there is a group of students who always hesitate, asking questions. Sometimes the dominance presence of a classroom faculty can also be a deterring factor. Sometimes the students on their own, they are caved with the idea that their questions might be of very low quality and rest of the class will laugh on them. So this is true that the hesitation part is true in either case. On the contrary, I am of the belief that in a seclusion where nobody is seeing me, I can ask anything to my teacher. Perhaps the question may not be of much value to him, but still, that the eye-to-eye contact hesitation that is created in classroom is completely taken care of when you are in online mode. So the problem of hesitation has to overcome in both the mediums. And yes, the teachers can always motivate them. Teacher has to give this confidence, dear student, you are alone and nobody is just watching your questions or listening to you except me. So don't come into group forum. Ask whatever it is. Ask the most fundamental and the basics of the question. Even if it goes back to suppose I'm a university teacher and he asks a question of class 12th, I need to clear it. The fundamental concept has to be clear, otherwise he'll not understand. So this hesitation is a component which is prevalent in both, in the classroom also and online also. It is the skill of the teacher. He will have to inspire him, he will have to force him that you cannot go ahead without learning this particular concept. And thus, the hand holding, the kind of compassion you can show both online and offline, you can just pull them from their comfort places to ask questions, to stand up and raise their hands. Thank you.
So it gives us liberty to backtrack, go back a little, and show our empathy also. Coming the next question from the same person, what about slow learners? How blended learning can assist them?
It is a boon for them. It is going to be a boon for them like never before. Uh, um, uh, Dear friends, please refer to your classroom teachings. Have you ever repeated a concept for 10 days? No. Maybe if somebody asks, you repeat twice, thrice. Otherwise, you get irritated sometimes and you say, oh, I cannot waste the time of entire classroom. You come in a different time and interact with me. Maybe I'll be able to convince you. So this sometimes can be, can have an adverse effect on the psyche of the student that he's not able to understand while the rest of the classroom has. In a lonely place, in a secluded place where he's learning, that is known as personalized space, where he's in the most comfortable state of his body and mind. He will have that liberty why 10 times, maybe a million of times. He can go on and go on and go on and watch you, go on and go on and listen to you. And he can listen to up to he develops a mastery over the subject. Thus, for the students who are slow learners, trust me, this is going to be the best system. For them, I will tell you not only to provide some part in blended learning, but the entire part in blended learning. If there are a group of students who are poor in grasping, please, for them at least, please try to provide the entire content in e-platform. Despite the fact that you have taught in classroom, be sure that the overall classroom performance of your students will, be altogether on a different level when you are providing them with this online learning opportunity. I have done it practically. I tell you, the students will perform much better in your semester examination and examinations if you allow them to repeat your learning materials when they are alone. So it is a boon for them. Trust me. Thank you.
So the situation really seems like blessings in disguise, right? In a way.
Absolutely.
So taking the same spirit forward, Anam Natawala is asking, sir, what are the ways by which we can attract students' interest for online teaching?
I think, Anandji, I have already addressed this question, but again, I would just repeat it for your listening that you'll have to be very creative and innovative and imaginative. You'll have to put your feet in the shoes of the students. You'll have to imagine as to how best they can learn. What is the thing or the element they look for, into your slides. Sometimes we decide at a very higher level, at a professional faculty level. We think that the learning is so easy as we have learned. No, it is going back, years together. And when you were a student, what was the most difficult thing? So those teachers are very successful who keep on interacting with their students. The teachers, are told to that they always remain young because they always interact with young minds. So be very interactive with your students. Always get feedback. Suppose you have curated you have made a assignment or a learning module today. It may not be very good in quality, but tomorrow, when you know the exact elements which were not good from a student's perspective, tomorrow you will be able to improve them. And slowly, with this process of improvement, is not a destination; it is a process. You go on improving, you go on improving, and someday your modules are going to be the best from students' perspective. So you'll have to take care of the clientele. You'll have to understand that your clients are students who are maybe 20 years, 25 years, or 20 or 15 years junior to you. So you'll have to go to their level. You'll have to understand their requirements, their interest areas. What do they like? And accordingly, you'll have to prepare your module. So keeping them interested, that means keeping them involved. First, involve them, engage them, and ask as to how they want it to be delivered. And so include more such elements which facilitates their learning. Thank you.
So process it is, and taking this process forward, there is another pointed question, sir, for us. Can online learning develop morals in students?
Yes, otherwise there would not have been modules developed in moral science. There are a variety of subjects in Indian and world education system, and one of them are morals and ethics. For that matter, even in PhD also you have now coursework being delivered online, and there is a component of research ethics. Yes, morality can absolutely be delivered through online mode. The only thing you need to be, you need to develop your content in a much while as you meet them in classroom, you also impress them, by practice. You say walk the talk, so they can see, the students can see you that my professor is morally very, upright guy. He does a lot of things which are in absolute manner. The work should be done. He teaches with a lot of efforts. He never does plagiarism. He never does copying from others' research. So that the students observes you. They like my PhD scholars. They keep on observing me for the entire day. In online mode, there are some limitations, but why not? And who knows that tomorrow the online modes can be more efficient in giving lessons on moralities and everything. You need to be imaginative. You need to be innovative. You'll have to think how the lessons of moral can be communicated, how it can be told and woven into a good story, which which just percolate down to their psyche. That you have to think. So you'll have to impress upon. That is the thing. If you're able to impress upon, that means any lesson delivered from any mode, from any part of the world is well received. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There is one question which is again a very question to me. I hope you can understand this. The question is how to avoid infringe methods in online test. Infringe methods in online test.
Yes, whosoever has asked this question is a very valid point. Even after this new circular of UGC, many universities are struggling with this, and this is going to be a real challenge. But are we not again going back to an era where open book examinations are coming into place? Are we not emphasizing more on innovations rather than mugging up the things? So there are ways through which you can do this. You can have a video availability. You can have of the participants in small groups. You can also have fixed time schedules. Now suppose if you want to conduct a test, so there can be a time slot defined. So if there are 30 MCQs, there can be 30 minutes time, after which the session closes and the paper is already submitted. So those kind of technological solutions are available. But if you want to say that these are absolute and infringement free, no, they cannot be, unless there is a 100% watching system, watchdog kind of system in place. It cannot be 100 times infringement free. Even in classroom, invigilations also. Let me share one of my experiences of a different institution where I was an observer. So there were 3 invigilators into a room, and we consider that those can save a lot of infringements and copying activities or malafide activities. So after all these 3 invigilators came, we thought we had a successful examination which were free from any kind of malpractices. But the CCTV showed it completely different experience. Those 3 examiners were roaming in the classroom, but there were a lot of malpractices that happened, and ultimately the students had to be called and an undertaking, and the paper was cancelled, and a lot of things happened. So infringement free is a imaginary state of thing. 100% achievement is not possible. Online, it is more porous and more vulnerable as of now. But I'm sure in coming days, the technology developers will take care of this and will soon have a system in place where we can, monitor them. 10 years ago, we had not imagined that we will have 4,200 participants sitting together. But today we are doing that. So maybe 5 years down the line or 2 years down the line after this corona pandemic, that we may have a solution for it. Thank you.
We'll end our sequence of questions is over here, sir. And let me congratulate once again for delivering a very, what we can say, cosmic quality, international standard sort of discourse on blended learning. It's such a self-sufficient discourse that by referring to your session only, one can initiate into this demand or future requirement of delivering online sessions. And as a learner, as an ardent listener of your session, I would like to share my learning with you and all my fellow classmates of worldwide audience. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a blend of contemporary and futuristic, culture and curricula, online and offline, personal, still mass, ethics to emotions, human, still technological, and virtual to virtuous. So let me put forward the crux of today's learning. It's a differentiated learning. It's a distinguished learning as well. Autonomy and flexibility to a learner and to person who is imparting the learning. Online class does not mean mass learning, but it can be a personalized learning also, which speaks about our empathetic skill, our innovative skill, and a designer skills of a teacher. And last but not the least, sir, it's a curated learning and engaging more. Like the perfect demonstration was given to us by today's orator, very able academician, Dr. Sumit Choudhary. Thank you so much on behalf of Bukata Sadia University, sir. We are really
Thank you, ma'am.
indebted to all the inspired learners. Thank you so much for chipping in. And if you have any questions, please write to us. And the task for today is already live on our Facebook page, which you can see there are just two questions. Please be a good learner and send it to us. Fill it judiciously and use your lot of creative skills and the learnings that you have received with sir. I would tag this particular session and this entire FDP, EFDP as a quest for finding new normal. And I would once again, for the last time, pass on the mic to Sir to impart his, parting shots.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Rosie, and thank you all the participants. I hope to interact with you sometime, personally. Hope to meet you all. And if not, we can always interact with our emails and other modes of communications. I'm sure, and the materials that will be supplied to you by the evening today, which I'll give to Dr. Rosie to supply to you, will also bear my email ID. You feel free to write to me for anything and everything, even sharing your experiences. I'd be very happy to receive your feedbacks. And thank you once again for joining me and listening to me very patiently. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Rosie, and thank you, Ukata Sadia University. Jai Hind.